Hello and welcome back to the survival game series. Previously we started work on our resource node collection, being able to collect different resources from different nodes around our world. In this episode we're going to carry on and complete the ability to spit out different chunks of resources from these nodes and collect them for our character. So let's get started. So last time we got started work on our resource nodes and we made the resource component, and part of that resource component was developing a damage system so that we can deal damage to it, and then it'll eventually drop off items hopefully, and then whatever else we may need it to do as well. So let's get working on the actual dropping of those resources that we need. So the resources are already on here and we set them up as a class type with a float, and the float is a representation of how likely it is to spawn that particular resource. So we're going to go ahead and create a weighted loot table for this. Now I've got a bigger video that goes into a lot more detail about how this actually works under the hood, so we're going to go through it briefly here, but if you want to learn more about it, by all means check it out. Just search the channel for weighted loot tables and you'll find it there. So when you take damage, we want to do a weighted loot table check to see what resources we want to drop. So I'm going to create a function here to drop resource. And on the drop resource here, we need to take the resources map out here and choose get. So the first thing you need to do is we need to calculate how many of those, what the chances are for each resource, put them all together. So we're going to go through each of the values on here. So you go to values and we just sum them all up by putting them through a little for each loop first of all, for each, and adding them all together. And for this we'll have a local variable to keep track of this as we go. So let's create a little local variable, L sum, and that'll be a float. And what we're doing is we're adding each of those items to each other. So we're just going to get L sum and then add the two floats together and then set it back to L sum. So by the time it reaches the end of the array, we will have a calculated list of all the values put together in a single float. Okay, so that is what you need to do for our running total. And once you've done that, we're going to drag this out a bit further here and we'll put in a sequence because this is going to be the first thing it does. So the first thing it does is calculate the sum, and then what we want to do is we need to go through and tell our game to calculate which loot it's going to be actually dropping based on this sum. So here we take the sum value out, and from there we want to get a random float within that range of that value. So random float in range, and this will be the maximum value, not the minimum one. So just drag that to there, and you want to store this as a variable. So we promote that to a local variable, and that'll be L random number. Okay, and we'll put that into the set, into the then one. We then want to take our resource loot table here and choose get, not set, and from there we're going to get all the keys from here. So this is each item in our map, so each item that could possibly drop, and we do a for each loop on this array. In this for each loop, we're then going to see whether or not its value sits within inside of the random number. So we take the random number out, and we'll take the resources out again, and we'll do a find to find the array element. This just gives us the number, and then we compare that number to our random number here. So with this in mind, we're going to take this out and then do a less than, or no, just less than, sorry. And you're going to check to see if it's less than the number that we've got here. So let's say, for example, the first item on the list has a chance of 10 being spawned. The random number was 8, therefore it would spawn that one. If it isn't though, what we're going to do is take that possibility of that one ever coming out. So we're removing it from the options. So once we do that, we're going to branch that off first of all. And let's just do the output for this actually when it is successful. And we'll do a little return node. And we're just going to output here the class that we need here. So we'll search for the class for the resource. And resource class reference. And we'll name that one as class. And that'll go into the true. Class obviously is going to come from our array element there. Perfect. Okay, so as I said, like once we've done that, we want to check for false, and false is going to basically remove the option away from the available Scrum as tickets from the available tickets of which is available to you to find. So what we do is we take the random number and we take from there minus the amount that we found inside our map. So let's say, for example, the number is 12. 12 and the first item needs has 10. Therefore, it's not smaller than, it's greater than. The round number now equals 2. And then it go to the next one. And the next one will say, okay, are you still inside our next range? Yes or no? And it will go through and through and through. So that we want to set back now to our random number and set that back to there. So it'll just keep going until it becomes small enough to tick off one of the resources. So in our resource list here, we can set up the different resources, put in how likely they are by putting a random number in there. And that will do it all for us. So let's go back to my event graph here and let's put in our drop resource after we take damage. So each hit we're going to do on the thing, it's going to drop an item. So this will output us a class here of a resource. So we need to tell it to spawn this resource, but give that resource a particular mesh or whatever it may be to spit out. So what we can do is drag this out and do spawn actor from class, choose this class reference here, and the spawn transform will be where this current resource component is based at. So this, we have to get the actor that is attached to this. So I'm going to get I think it's parent actor, is it? No, get owner. There you go. Get owner, and from there we can get the actor transform, or at least actor location at least. And we'll just split that open and put that in there. And you want this to always spawn, ignoring all collisions. So do always spawn, ignore collisions, and that'll spawn whatever we choose to spawn here into the world. Okay, so next we want to do is create the resources that are going to spawn out of this. So let's create the simple resources. Now the resources are going to be data tables which store basically the details of each item and their appearance essentially. So we're going to create a struct to handle this, and we're going to do resource struct, and we're going to go inside of here and give it a few details. So we have name, and the struct is basically a collection of variables. So you just bunch them all together like this, and you can keep them together in all the whole entire way through. So we've got a name. You may have a description. Don't know. You can always add to this later if you need to as well. A thumbnail for when we put it into our inventory screen. That'll be a texture 2D type. We'll need a mesh to know what they look like in 3D. So we'll just drag this out, put in static mesh. And that'll be a static mesh type. And put that in there. And that'll do it for now, I think. We'll leave it like that. Okay, so now I want to make a data table for this. So we're going to right click in empty space down here, go to miscellaneous, and then you'll find data table. And from the drop down, we can choose our resource struct. There you go. So we've got resources data table. So in here, I can now define what each resource is. So for example, we can have one in here called stone, and we'll go and give it the name stone, description, chip off the old block, Thumbnail, which we haven't got, I don't think, so we'll come back to that later. But a mesh, let's find a mesh that we can use for this. I'm just going to put this over here on my other screen, so we can try and find some other meshes we've got here. So we've got environment pack 3 here. Let's have a look and see what stones we have. We've got anything small we can have. So we've got stone, gemstones. That's handy, but not what we need. Rock. Okay, so we've got some rock stuff here. Nothing small by the looks of it. Let's take a look at meshes. See if there's anything we can use for our small little stones. Because they're like chips, basically. So they're going to be chipping off little ores, little blocks of stone. Let's go for not much choice in this pack, but never mind, we'll figure it out. Okay, I'll tell you what we can do. We'll go in and use the starter one. I think we'll scale it down. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what, actually, we'll use this loot one for now. We're going to change it back later, it's no problem. Okay, so there we go. So it's going to spawn this thing into the world with this mesh. So let's go ahead and look at how we're going to put this into our resource class. So the resource class is pretty simple. All it is going to be a physics-based object that gets flung out. So let's open Full Blueprint Editor, and in here we're going to add a component to this, and it's going to be a static mesh. And in here you're going to drag this to the root, because it's going to be a physics-based object. You want the mesh, or the collisional part, to be the root of it. So once that's in there like that, we want to make sure you've assigned a mesh to this. So we'll give it a default one like this. No, leave it like that, be fine. And then we'll just go down to simulate physics and turn that on. Okay, so the thing does need to have physics on it. So for that to happen, you need to have collision on it too. So let's go into those packs we have here. Oh, hang on, we've got a pack here. Let's see what else we got in here. Static mesh. Got anything more useful in here that we could use? So I just want like a little rock thing. Got hay there. There you go. What's this? Oh, that'll do. Yeah, we'll use that one. So I'll just put that into the table. And this is all part of the Infinity Blade Grassland pack. So, Exo Stone. O1. Okay, that'll do. So yeah, so this resource here, we want to make sure that the mesh itself has collision on it. So if you go into open up your mesh and you go to collision up top, turn on simple collision, check that it has this green border on it. Now if it doesn't have one, it does mean you have to generate one, which is pretty simple. All you have to do is go to collision up here and do add box, capsule, sphere, whatever the best shape fits for the mesh you're trying to do here. So if I were to clear this one out, for example, let me just remove this one, and want to do a new one, let's go to collision, add box, and now I've got a much tighter box around it. Now do it. So you want to make sure that your mesh has that on there, otherwise simulate physics won't work. Once that's done, we're going to hit save, and we're done here. So back on our resource, then we're going to go to our variables, add in the row name from our data table. So that'd be the row name, and we'll give that the type of name. And we'll make this editable and exposed on spawn there. Compile and save that. Okay, so that's all good there. So I'm happy with that. Hit save, and we can close this down. So let's now go back to my resource component, because I want to change something. Now we're using data table to handle this. I want to change the class output on here, not be a class, but be a name reference instead. So I'm going to go to our, let's just first of all save it all, because I'm scared it's going to crash it. Go to a resource here and change this to name. And let it do its thing. Yep. And then we can go in here and just change this around. So just change that around. There. There. Change the output here to be a name. And yeah. Okay, I think that's all of it. Compile. No, missing one. Oh yeah. Yeah, so when that comes in like this, we're going to choose the resource class. And oh, I spell it correctly. And when we do that, we're going to get asked for the row name. That's going to be this class link here. So when that spawns, it's going to come in with that name. Now, when I do spawn it in, I do want to grab hold of the mesh that we've assigned in the data table. So let's go to our resource class here. And let's go to the construction script on this. And on here, I'm going to take the row name out. And I want to do a data table row. And we're going to choose the resource data table. And then from there, I'll get an out row, which I can break open. And now I've got access to the contents of that table's row, including that static mesh that I've assigned. So from there, I can take the static mesh I've got as my component and do set static mesh. And you should see the function for set static mesh. Patterns row found. And then simply just plug in this static mesh here. Okay, so it'll spawn in with that mesh assigned. Okay, so with that done, let's test this out. So to test this out, I need to be able to do damage to my resource. Obviously, I can't do that yet. We haven't put that in there yet. But what I'll do is I'll just do a little timer which does damage to it. So we're going to go begin plate, and we'll do set timer by event. Do custom event on here. Apply damage. And we'll put in every 2 seconds on a loop. We're going to do apply damage to itself. So damage actor will be self. Base damage we'll do 1, doesn't really matter. It's going to spawn 1 anyway every time. And damage causer we'll put in self again as well. Now for the when that happens, we do need to make sure we have got assigned on here the resources that are available to it. So over here on the right hand side, I go to resources, I can click on the plus icon, and I'll type in the name that associates with the row in the data table. So it has to match this name here in the row name. So if I go into, I've lost it, there it is. Okay, so if I go in here and just put in stone, and put in the value of 10, doesn't really matter because it's the only one there. Compile, and we should now see these stones get spawned in, hopefully. So let's drag the stone resource into our world. There it is. Wait for the world to finish doing its shader stuff. There it is. And let me just drag it out, make it a bit more obvious. And a bit bigger. Okay, so this is our vein of stone. Let's hit play on this, and let's see it spawn these little blocks out. So it is spawning them because the count on the side here is going up. Now what might be happening is because they are colliding with something that has got collision already on it, they may be getting stuck and sucked through the floor. So we've got to keep that in mind. So let's go fix that collision out on that. So what we're going to do on the resources here, we're going to tell it to, when it spawns on the resource component here, we're going to tell it who owns this resource. I'm going to say get owner. We're going to plug that into the owner there. And then on the resource itself, the actual thing that gets flung out, on begin play, you drag out the static mesh, and then you do set ignore. Sorry, not set ignore. Ignore. Not type today. Ignore actor when moving, and we're going to plug in our get owner into the actor here. So what that basically means is that it won't be affected by its owner. at all if I tick this box. When I also do this, I'm going to give it a good impulse as well. So I'm going to do add impulse to the static mesh. Add impulse here. And so we get flung out away from the direction here. So we're going to do a, let's say, random vector. And we'll multiply that by a strength of, say, I don't know, 5,000 to start off with. See what happens there. And hit compile. Okay, so let's playtest that out. And, oh, if I wasn't stuck in the ground. There you are. Okay, where is it? There it is. I don't want to go too far away from it. Hit play. Okay. Still not seeing it. It's definitely spawning it because it's appearing on the right hand side there in the outliner, but it's not appearing here. So the question is, where is it appearing? So let's double check our spawn code here. Spawn location, get active location of this owner. Spawning, always spawn, ignore collisions, spawn transform. Yeah, it's all there. Let's get in and debug this. Oh, maybe not in the water. That'd be useful. Jump in. Okay, and then I'm just going to do Shift F1 and then F8 to break out of my character here. Now I'm looking for resources here. So here they are, they're all spawning here. Where are they? I'm going to click on one and they're spawning right down there. Oh, I'm seeing something happen. Hang on. So there you go. They are spawning. They're just getting flung downwards. So it's probably because the root of this thing is underneath the map. So therefore it's falling down underneath the map. So simple fix on that one. We just tell it where to spawn the active location. So we're going to do active location and we'll do plus a vector. Give it a little offset. And we'll say 100 in a Z. That hopefully be high enough for it to trigger. Yep, there you go. Okay, and there's our resources coming out. So imagine that we're hitting that rock and it's now spawning these blocks out here, which I can then pick up down the line and build stuff with. Okay, and there you go. So we've now got resources being able to be spawned from objects. Now to show you what happens when you want to do a different resource, if I go to the data table here and add like gems, and say this is gems, and we have in here a gems model, gem screen, gem fusion, some gems. I don't know what these look like. Let's have a look. Yeah, that'll do. I just want to make sure these got collision on them. These probably don't. Oh, they do. They're handy. Okay, so hit save on that, and that is all I've got to worry about there. So back on my data table. Just make sure that that is set there just fine. Not going to worry about description for this one. But I want to put in gems now into my stones resource here. So I go to the stone resource component and I go resources on the right hand side here. Type in gems. And this time I'll put in a value of say, let's say 5. So it has a half the amount of time it will spawn gems. Okay, it's got two out of 3 times more likely to spawn stone. And a third of the time it will spawn gems. So let's see how that comes through. Hit play. So we've got stone, 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 gems. There you go. It went somewhere. They're quite small, so I probably need to get a different model than that. But that one was the gems one. They're getting launched. But you get the gist, okay? So you can just add more resources to it. So if you want them to drop like metal ores, for example, you can do. You just make them spawn in with different metal ores just by tapping it into that list. And there you have it. So there you have it. We've now got chunks of rock coming out of our rock node, and we're now ready to go and collect them up. So in the next episode, we're going to work on our inventory system to collect these pieces of rock and collect them in our inventory menu. If you want to watch the next episode right now, head over to patreon.com/Ryan Laley. We can catch all my episodes early before everyone else from just $1 a month. I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons for their support and also everyone on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.